What's up, friends? Welcome back to Stay Forth Leadership Podcast. As always, I'm Jonathan, your co-host alongside Alan Briggs, and today we are bringing you a bonus episode. Tomorrow, Thursday, we'll be back into our normal summer series, which if you haven't listened to it yet, the links to the first two episodes are below, but all summer long, we are talking about what it takes to become an H2 leader. If you're asking yourself what an H2 leader is, we dive into that in the first episode, but a quick overview. Quite simply, an H2 leader is someone who lives and leads from a place of health and create sustainable high levels of impact. Those things do not go in opposition to one another, as it may seem. They are simply two lanes on the same highway that give you guardrails to live and lead for the long haul from a place of health, creating high levels of impact. We'll be back into our third episode tomorrow, but for today's episode, Alan was over on the Workplace Delight podcast recently. Links to the show and Substack will be in the show notes, talking about how sabbaticals are helping leaders and organizations rediscover what it means to rest, to unlock creativity, to gain clarity, and build self-leadership that's rooted in trust, delight, and transformation from a place of abundance, and also the benefits that sabbaticals have on not just the leader taking the sabbatical, but also the entire organization, top to bottom, all the way into benefits of family. This is a great conversation, so sit back and enjoy today's bonus episode of Stay Forth Leadership Podcast with Johnny Levy over on the Workplace Delight podcast.
We get it. You're busy. You want to grow, and we want to help. You're passionate about your craft because it deeply matters to you. Your faith is important. It's your foundation. At Stay Forth, we coach leaders to avoid burnout, live and lead with clarity, purpose, and from a place of health. We want you to experience long-term impact. Welcome to the journey.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Workplace Delight. And today I get the absolute joy of interviewing a friend and mentor, Alan Briggs, who is a leadership and sabbatical coach with a love for adventure. So welcome to the show, Alan.
Thanks, man. So good to be here. I love what you're building. I love how you're connecting humans, and always an honor to chat with you, man.
Well, that's high praise coming from the chief connector, man. So I'll take that all day. Thank you for being with us. So the first thing you said is that you want people to know about you is that you're an adventurer. Can you tell us about that?
Man, since I can remember, I've always been seeking out adventures, and I've actually had some disappointment in my life around thinking, I'm going to do this in a more adventurous realm, whatever this is. What I realized a couple years ago, Johnny, is that I've found myself going on adventures with leaders, the adventure of life, the adventure of what I call uncovering or excavating their unique design. And you've been on some kind of mini little adventures with me, whether it's taking guys to the mountains, whether it's taking leaders off for reflection day, where we actually just get to be quiet a little bit and wonder what's going on below the surface. I view myself as a mountain guide for the leadership journey. So I don't say, I'm a leadership coach. I don't lead with that. I actually say, I want to go on your next leadership peak climb with you. What is that? Where are you heading? How can I help you plan for that, train for that, and go on that with you? And not just be your Sherpa, but actually be the guide that's shoulder to shoulder with you. So I get to live in that great adventure, the great adventure of having 4 kids, especially this time of the year when they're doing all the stuff, the adventure of not just being married to my wife, but she helps those who are pushed aside in society and serves prisoners and orphans and foster families in that. So how do I help her on the adventure of that as well? So it's the common through line of everything in my life, and it keeps me waking up guessing every single day.
Dude, I love it, man. And I can see that too in my own experience. You've been a Sherpa and a kind of shoulder to shoulder guide with me in the creation of my book. So for those that are watching, my book, The Superpower Quest, which published about a year ago, would not exist in this world without Alan Briggs. And I mean that. Like that's not just empty praise. You know, there was an early part in the process where Alan called me into adventure, and I told him about my idea, and he said, "You need to do it." I have this book idea. I haven't written it. He says, "You need to write the book." And I believe you told me, post on LinkedIn the timeline that you're going to write this book, what it's going to be about, post it on LinkedIn, and then tag everybody that you know so they can hold you accountable.
The word I use is terraciting. It's equal parts terrifying, equal parts exciting. And here's the reality, man. It's like the people that just want to walk around the city park and the pond with ducks in it and like throw bread to the ducks and go like, oh, isn't it beautiful here? Like they stop hanging out with me because the people that I want to be in relationship with and the people that I want to coach are like, I want to go into the wilderness. And we know what happens in the wilderness, and it is brave, and it is scary, and it's incredible, and you get the best views, you get the most trout when you get to that mountain lake. And so for me, those are my people that are the ones crazy enough to throw out the dream on LinkedIn and actually go do it. So Johnny, it was a natural fit for us to become buds.
Yeah, dude, it's been one of the, I'd say you're one of my top five influencers in my life, dude. And so, yeah, and that's real. I mean, that's just what it is. So I'm interested in getting into the intersection between that calling to adventure and the idea of sabbatical. But before we do that, I want to linger here for a second. What would you say was a defining moment in you? You have a great self-understanding. You understand yourself as an adventurer. You teach courses on the 6 types of working genius. So obviously you understand the importance of knowing your design. What were some key moments for you in understanding your own design as an adventurer?
Yeah, I mean, those are 2 big words for me that describe identity, not just impact. But sometimes if you have impact in the world, you can actually move backward and excavate and go, is that something I do? Or is that actually a piece of me that I just do naturally? I can't not do. So designer and adventurer have always been part of me. I mean, I'm fascinated by physical space. When somebody is like, I don't think my schedule's working for me, I can't not think, let's redesign that puppy to make sure that it works for you. That's how a designer thinks. When I walk into a space, I think, this is super awkward. Like the space that I'm in right now, I walked into and it was like super tan, looked like 1990s. There was no activity. I got bounced by an old lady at the front door that's like, you can't go there. And I was like, this is anti-hospitality. And so I pitched that to the business owner and said, you wanted to fill your building up. This is not working. And he said, let's do that together. And so I think like a designer. I live and think like an adventurer. And so I think the challenge for me, Johnny, has been how do I bring those together? Because my canvas is people. And that is amazing. That's like 85% amazing. And the 15% is that I don't have a physical product at the end of the day to show. Sure, I write books, I create video courses, and the content, but I don't have a physical product that like gives me splinters, or I can say I built this table, or I built this house, or this housing development, or this part of the built environment in the city. But I think design, I think adventure, how do we put those together? And for me, it happens in relationships. So there wasn't like an aha moment of all that coming together. It was honestly me starting to coach people and saying, what is this? I love this. I can speak, I can write, I can inspire people, but whatever this thing is, I love it. I was able to name that. That's coaching, and ultimately it's bringing the greatness out of people and watching them thrive, watching them elevate. There's no better joy for me, and it just happens that I also get paid to do that. So I feel like a lucky dude that I get to live in the Venn diagram overlap of impact and income every single week.
So you're living your calling.
I am, and that's hard fought, and I won't say that every single moment feels like that. I still got to answer emails, right? I still got to sit down and manage my team a little bit on Mondays. Now, I try to not do that much, so I brought on a self-managing team in many ways, but those pieces are lower and lower percentages every single year for me, and higher percentage is in my design, and I would say I'm living out my unique design, which I would say a synonym for that is calling.
All right, so then let's get into it with sabbatical. So I brought you onto the show because I believe that the work that you're doing with sabbatical, and you've been doing it for a long time, you're the only voice that I know that's really kind of trumpeting the idea of sabbatical into the world. Maybe there are others, but you're the only one that I know. And it began to occur to me that this applies not just to religious and nonprofit institutions, but it's in a world where employers are more and more trying to figure out how to delight their employees. This could be an element of that. So that's why you're here. And because I don't think there's anybody else who could speak to sabbatical more than you can. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey with sabbatical and why it became important to you?
Yeah, so I was actually serving as a pastor, and I was doing some coaching on the side, and I was also an author. And so I had these three pieces that were similar but also disconnected in my life. And I got a chance to unhitch from the pastoring side of things, where I was given one of the greatest gifts of my whole life, which was a sabbatical. I was given 10 weeks to go do whatever I want. I got little kids at home, and I love my work, but I also realized there's probably a lot that I haven't had time or energy to think through. I had just adopted 2 kids, and then we'd had our next. And so, as you can imagine, there's a level of overwhelm that I was more tired than I even thought. And but the challenge of that, Johnny, is I didn't know what to do. They're like, go do whatever you want, just don't do work. And I'm like, go where? Do what? We were broke as a joke, so it's not like I was going to Fiji. And it's not like, what do I do? And during that time, I uncovered so many things, mostly good, but a lot uncomfortable about myself and about my family, and about things like, man, some days it's easier to live at work because I get this praise that I don't get at home. My kids don't care what I do professionally. They just care that dad takes them to the park. So it was really, really good for me. And then I got a redo. About 5 years later, I got to receive another sabbatical, and it was a little bit better, a little bit more effective. So a little bit more prepared for it. But as I was coaching leaders through their leadership challenges, their mountain guide on their leadership journey, helping them bring clarity, then they would say things like, well, I'm going on this sabbatical. Should we continue coaching? And I'm like, well, let me share some things you should and shouldn't do during sabbatical. And I began to develop tools. My way, Johnny, of dealing with the complexity of life is to create simple tools that work for everybody. A diagram, 3 frameworks, 2 boxes, just something simple to cut through the noise and simplify the complexity, which, by the way, I think is hospitality for me. I watch you struggle in the complexity. Couldn't we create 2 or 3 simple ways so that you can push through the noise? And I started to do that in the sabbatical space, and started to see people are literally different people on the other side of sabbatical. That's, like you said, largely been inside of religious institutions, academic institutions, which basically they just say, go write another book. So I don't like academic sabbaticals. I don't think they're actually sabbaticals, but that's for another day. But inside of religious institutions like churches, even nonprofits, they understand that if we give people a chance to rest, then we're actually going to see greater retention, greater sustainability, greater productivity. But the trick is you have to trust the process, because they can leave right afterwards. And that's what the business space has been slow to. But we've been on this. I've been coaching folks through sabbatical for about 7 years. I've probably coached now about 70 people through that. And then our team is getting close to about 70 for our other coaches through that. We've learned a lot. We've seen a lot of patterns. Put that recently into a field guide called the Sabbatical Journey to say, man, hospitality would be put it into one resource. And business is catching up, though. Like you say, business is realizing it. There was a Harvard Business Review article that came out based on a study by a researcher and Harvard professor named DJ Dodonna. It came out just this February. And it was basically like, sabbatical, it's the next thing. Companies, you need to pay attention to this. And I was thinking, there's probably 10 of the big corporations that you would recognize now have sabbatical policies. And what do you think's happened? Attraction to new employees. Younger employees are like, I want to have something bigger than just this paycheck. Younger employees will actually take less money if they sense health and longevity and sustainability there. So yes, business is actually catching on. And I get it, man. It's got to work for the business. It's got to work for the people. Businesses are probably not going to do it just to be the most loving, caring business place ever. It actually helps you, because it's creativity, innovation. Google gives people time. Microsoft gives people time. And those folks are smart. They've done the analytics. They've done the numbers. They know your productivity is going to go up. Where do you think innovation is going to come from? You're going to get it from the shower. You're going to get it from the vacation. You're going to get it from the sabbatical. You're probably not going to get it from that crusty boardroom conversation you have every single week.
Oh, bro, this is exciting. All right. So there's a couple things here that I want to point out. First, I keep running into this theme in my conversation with people. We tend to give the gift that was given to us, and that tends to be the most effective gift that we can give, because we can give it from our guts, right? And so this whole thing started with, you received a gift, all right? I think, what did you say? One of the greatest gifts of my whole life was that first 10-week sabbatical. What made it such a gift to you?
lack of have-tos and the presence of get-tos. So I'd just say get-tos are the things we do for delight. Have-tos are the things we do for duty. And when we are leaders, and the phrase leaders say is everyone needs me all the time. That's what my coaching clients say. Everyone needs me all the time. I get in the car and I got to make calls. I get home. I got to drive the kids to 17 places tonight. Don't forget dinner. Don't forget the soccer cleats. Make sure you get over here. And at the end of the day, we feel what burnout experts call depersonalization of I'm not a human. I'm just a machine. I'm just an Uber driver. I'm just a productivity machine. I'm just a writer. I'm just an innovator. I'm just the next idea. And we actually forget we're a human and we have needs. When people don't bring their whole selves to work, then they're not invited to bring their best selves to work. So what's interesting, you talk about that idea, that gift that's given to us. Suddenly I would go, that's an idea. What if I gave that away to somebody else? That was amazing. Somebody gives me a gift card that says, hey, go get this Airbnb night away or go to this amazing restaurant. I think I should probably do that to somebody else because what a gift it was to me. So what we're seeing is CEOs or the head of that organization, the operations director, the HR person, whatever, that experiences a sabbatical and has the power to give it back, then we come alongside and help them create a sabbatical program or policy. And you don't have to wait till you sell the company someday to do that. You don't have to wait till you quit and have just enough runway so that you can go 3 or 6 months without it. Guess what? You're going to be so focused on finding your next job, you're not actually going to be able to relax, be able to replenish, because you got a new job and it's called finding a job. So being between jobs is not a sabbatical. It is an intentional posture. And it is one of the greatest gifts. I think all those get-tos, man, were like, I picked up a book just because I could. Not because it was a leadership book, because it was a novel or a design magazine. That's one of my favorite things. Just look at a beautiful design magazine. I learned cross skill-wise. I learned cross idea-wise, convergent ideas. I learned to weld during my last sabbatical, and I was just kind of like, I got space. I've always wanted to learn to weld. This is my time. And so I apprenticed, and learn this dirty welding gear. I was underneath the hood, and that was some of my favorite times. And sure, there's leisure involved. There's vacation involved in that. But most of it is just time to think. Time to reconnect with myself, time to do a hobby just because. And for me, that first one with my kids was so important because I wanted to make sure I was the dad that was fully invested, showing up for my kids, not the dad that's just giving them leftovers.
So as I'm hearing what you're saying, and I imagine others that are hearing this might be having a similar response, there's a longing. I find a longing inside myself because I think, my entire adult life, I've been on the move, right? That the space you're describing, I haven't had a sabbatical. Like I haven't had the space that you're describing.
Man, I hope you do. Let's figure out how we can work backwards and get you on a couple years down the line.
Yeah, but it almost sounds too good to be true, right? I bet you a lot of people are giving you that feedback. It sounds too good to be true. The idea of being able to do it, but the draw is, man, what if I woke up and there weren't a bunch of have-tos, right? What if I woke up and there were a bunch of get-tos? I'm trying to think back when the last time I had that kind of leisurely, spacious experience. It was in college. It was in college, bro. I used to get up in college early and go to the computer lab and I'd write creative writing, write poetry and stories for 6 hours before I stopped. You know what I mean? And just, I remember how life-giving that was to have space, but we've built lives for ourselves in which it's like spaces for when you're at college or spaces for when you're a kid. It's not for grown people, right? And you're trying to fight that myth.
We're too responsible, right? I got too much that I need to steward. I got too many gifts. I got too much responsibility and we got bills to pay. That's silly. That's play over there. And so there is an element of returning to my boyhood self to go, here's a hobby I haven't picked up in 10 years. Or I've wanted to weld since I was a kid, but I just never, just because I can't make money doing it or don't want to make money doing it, doesn't mean that I shouldn't do it. And man, especially in the years of raising kids, we feel bad of like, man, if I go away and do my hobby, that means my wife has to take on extra duty, or that means my kids are without their dad for a while. So we actually have to fight through the internal battles first before we can push through the external obstacles to sabbatical. And that's what most people see. Oh, I can never get away for X amount of time. Let's flip the question. What would have to be true, Johnny, for you to get away from work for 6 to 10 weeks without the family hurting financially and with you pushing into areas of delight, not just duty? Now we're talking. Now we can reverse engineer for that. And that's what I had to do, man. I run a company. And actually, I run a few businesses right now. And I had to reverse engineer that for my last sabbatical of 6 weeks. And I was like, is this going to hurt our company? Maybe. Ended up hurting us a little bit in the short term. Ended up being a great win and a boost for us in the long haul. So did it hurt? I don't know.
So I imagine the reason people don't is there's two words that come to mind for me: fear and pride, right? Fear is, obviously everything's going to crash and burn. Pride is they can't survive without me, right? Like I'm too essential to even consider this. Do you see those as the big objections, or are there others?
Fear, pride. Let me put the last one as permission. That's for you. That's for the person that succeeded. That's for the person that rides the rocket, sells their company, exits, and now has $8 million in the bank. But not just for me. I haven't arrived at that spot. And my fundamental belief about rest is that it is a human right. It's never going to just be naturally given to us. It's actually something, although it's a right, we've got to fight for it. Now, what's interesting, Johnny, is the most impoverished people and cultures in the world, unfortunately, get rest taken from them. They have to work 3 jobs. They have to push just to make ends meet. But we know down deep that is not the good life. That's not thriving. And none of us want to be caught in survival, but I work with founders. I work with people with lots of money in the bank, highly successful, and they don't even think that they can do it. Maybe someday. No, that's called retirement, bro. You're going to be old. You're not going to be able to hike to that mountain that you want to or go on that trip you want to because you're going to be old. And if you push at the rate you are now, you're not going to live to be that old or have a quality of life there. So I think that the tide is turning. Anybody under about 45 is starting to say, man, I'm not sure that it's worth just pushing so hard and then eventually dropping off that cliff called retirement. What if we had enough breaks and quality of life in there that we had enough to survive and we actually took breaks as we go? I'm super encouraged to hear this shift that's unfolding right now.
Oh, it's definitely happening. And it's interesting because that's so confirming to my actual reasons for bringing you here. Because it's like a river flowing into this lake or this ocean, which is, we need a new philosophy of work, right? This fits into a new philosophy of work. Sabbatical, if I'm thinking that I could actually take a sabbatical, or that it would be desirable for me or my employees to take a sabbatical, I would have a radically different view of work than what we've carried for the last many decades.
So 2 thoughts on that. I got to cut you off. I hate that word take as it comes to sabbatical because my fundamental belief is that rest is a gift. And I'm a person of faith, so I believe that God actually builds that in to give to people he loves, which is all humans, that he loves us, and so he gives us rest. So it's actually a gift that we receive. Taking a sabbatical feels like I'm going to snatch something away from someone versus, man, okay, I'm gonna do this. I mean, most sabbaticals are given by an organization, and then it's this gift. And you're like, oh man. And so again, why I don't like academic sabbaticals is because you need to produce something. It's for your next book. And let's be real, it helps the institution keep going. It's a different kind of work. I've written books before. It ain't restful, I'll tell you that much. And it is a different kind of work. So I think there's that. But you talked about if we don't have the right view of work, we don't have the right view of rest. So yes, let's camp out there for a second. Most people are working at about 70% all the time. They're kind of working, kind of loafing, kind of resting, never fully off, kind of in their emails, kind of available on the weekends. But for me, I'm all in and all out. And that kind of intensity or extremeness is super helpful today when it's like, man, like I work really, really hard. So please don't see me as, oh, here's Alan, the guy that's a slacker. I work really, really hard, serve my clients with deep intensity, had one session before this, have another session after this. I know I'm tired, but that rest is actually what allows me to work really hard, to be intense, to be invested, and then boom, I close my laptop and I go, now I'm going to rest hard. And when I study burnout, that was my last book. I've been on the study for 8 to 10 years pretty intensely, kind of obsessed by why burnout is happening. A whole lot of it is surprising because we're kind of working but kind of resting. And that is actually leading people toward burnout because there are no boundaries or riverbanks. So if you're listening to this, watching this, I would just say, like, when are you on? And then when are you off? Because I can tell you ain't producing the best work if you are not getting that time. Completely different zone. The best psychologists, the best organizational theorists right now are saying be all in at work and then be all out. Deep work, deep play, whatever, white space, margin. I can tell you all the authors, all the people, we know the stuff, but we're just not doing it for some reason.
Yeah. So with this new philosophy of work, right, that we're trying to press into, and the way that sabbatical fits into that, I'm sitting here I'm imagining a company would have to be very healthy in order to give the gift of sabbatical to a leader who's healthy enough to receive the gift of sabbatical, right? And it sounds like it starts with the leader, and healthy leadership is one of the main components to a healthy and thriving workplace. So it starts with the leader, trickles down to the entire organization. Do you find that you have to get organizations healthy first before they're able to indulge in sabbatical, or how does that work?
Great question. Chicken or the egg? Which was first? I believe that they have to have the intention of health. It is not the only way that an organization gets healthy. It is a major sign and marker that they have changed the scorecard. What gets celebrated gets done. And it is an indication they've changed the scorecard. But if we treat it like another leadership hack, people are going to see through it. And they're going to go, man, you still drive us at 120%. And then you have this little carrot at the end. Just like a little raise is also a little carrot, or a no vacation policy, or a whatever is that. Now, I'm a fan of all that stuff. I would say trust your employees with as much as possible and see what they do with it. And the best performers are actually going to come back even better. So I hate the stuff that limits people, at work. But I would just say they have to have the intention of health. As you give it, as you steward it well, and it has to be stewarded well and curated in a healthy way. That's why we come alongside from the outside to help organizations do it the best possible, learn from best practices, call in other organizations doing sabbaticals and say, what's good about it? Can I borrow your sabbatical policy? What do you wish you would have done? You don't have to start this stuff from scratch, but they get healthier as they go. And then they start to realize things like, you know what? My family is actually more important than my work. Or you know what? I could actually do really well at work and lose my marriage. And that would hurt all of us if the CEO lost their marriage. It's going to slow us all down. So once we start to realize there's wholeness, there's integration, not disintegration, not separation between all these other things, but healthy integration. And by the way, I fight for work-life integration and work-life separation. Both of those are really, really important. Is to say, like, nope, at the kitchen table, I should not answer my emails on a Saturday. It's not healthy or helpful. Go play with my kids. I'll get it on Monday. But also, I want to integrate whenever I possibly can to the fact that I can bring my kids along to work. I can have them see what I get to do. I can have them peek into that. But I think it's that work-life separation that actually brings this deep thought. So let me give you this thought. My friend gave it to me years ago. I wish I would have said it, but I have to credit a guy named Will who said this now. Without margin, there's no imagination. Think about that. Without margin, there's no imagination. Without space, there is no vision. And so we wonder why our leaders are creatively flat. Well, it's because we've limited them to 3 weeks of vacation and said, hey, hope you get what you need. Come back and grind on Monday. And then you get a grinding culture. Tired leaders produce tired ideas. Fresh leaders produce fresh ideas.
Dude, come on, man. So Greg McKeown just posted something about taking the time to stop and listen to your inner voice, right? Which a little different than other content that I've seen him produce, but it arrested me, right? Because it's true, right? With no margin, there's no imagination. If I don't have, probably the biggest casualty of our distraction culture is the ability to reflect and imagine, because we have all of our instruments and devices and media imagining for us. And we just enter into that. We step into that instead of being creative. So I affirm that. I see that too. So I also want to circle and underline something that I'm hearing in total. Sabbatical is a reflection of an abundance mindset towards the employee or the leader, right? Whereas if it were a hack, right? If you're using it as a hack, that's more of a transactional mindset. It's like, I'm going to get more out of you.
And transactional is still scarcity.
Yeah, still scarcity.
It's just scarcity plus. It's just scarcity with a blazer thrown on it.
Right. And so this works in the greater context, which is what I think you and I both see that the market is shifting towards, right? These younger people, they're not like, I'm just going to work for you till I die, then retire, and whatever you do is fine because I just got to put my time. Like, this younger generation doesn't tolerate that, like the older generation was trained to. And so employers are having to get more creative and more interested and invested in the whole person in order to remain competitive. I mean, it's good for business. It's good for people. Like, it's a win all around. So abundance mindset and the sabbatical journey. I think those two, I think those fit together a lot.
And trust. Like, at the end of the day, do you trust your people to get their work done? And we're still managing people based on the old assembly mentality from the industrial age. If we can look over people, we can have control. Friends, we've lost control. Do I know what they're doing at home? No, you don't. And by the way, who says people need to work 45 hours a week to get paid for the amount? Do we pay people for value, or do we pay them for time? Because to me, if they get incredible work done in 30 hours a week and they're producing innovation for you, who cares they're working in 30 hours a week? Maybe the extra 15 that they're doing, creating the margin, is actually making you the millions of dollars over here. So we have to reframe, again, what we think about work, what we think about humans. What is our product? Why are we doing this? Are we living out our mission? All the things I do when I consult with an organization, and also say at the end of the day, like, there are weeks, like last week on our team, where I was like, we don't have anything huge to tend to. We can get ahead a little bit, but we got a lot to do in our families. So as we record this, it's May, and it's the May Madness, and so we can use a little bit of extra time to recover and go take care of our families better. I got a big project coming out with my next book. My book on sabbatical releases. And so that requires momentum. Wise leaders make use of rest and momentum. So plan the sabbatical, hopefully at the right time for the organization. It's okay to have a no-fly zone on it. Not your busiest time of the year. But also, are we ready for our busiest time of the year? If we are rested enough, we will be ready like a surfer to swim into the next wave so that we can catch the wave of momentum. And we've separated these two so much. So you see me getting fired up, man. I'm passionate about this. We have to know our why. We have to know our how. That's culture. That's health. That's intensity. That's value. And money always follows value.
So what are the positive results that you experienced and that you typically see after somebody comes back from a sabbatical?
There's two things we talk about, and this is actually like ancient stuff from ancient Hebrew culture. Release is the first one. So we let go of something. In coaching, I use this phrase every single week without exception. What got you here isn't going to get you there. The mindsets, the habits, the ways that you used to do things, your strategies that worked before, we have to say thank you, but thank you no more. They sit in the past, and I'm going to leave them there. Other ideas, pruning or cutting off the things, that are taking the most energy. What got us here isn't going to get us there, so we release things. But then the second, once our hands are a little emptier, or we empty the junk drawer of our lives or our schedule out, then we reset. and we put a few things from the junk drawer back in, but are saying like, this is actually the new schedule that works for me. People always reset their schedule, their priorities, their why, and also they're like, do I really want to work here? My belief is that when you sabbatical well, you actually have to return to work. Guys, here's the thing, CEOs, bosses, we don't want people just doing their time and quiet quitting, working at 70% or 61% or 58%, whatever the least they can is to not get fired. We would rather have, and we need to rather have, a few employees going at 110%, alive with our mission, connected, buoyant, excited at work versus the ones who are just trying to barely not get fired. That is what happens. So we release these things and then we reset, and that takes us into the future. Those are the kind of employees you want to hold on to, you want to give raises to, you want to incentivize, and you want to build the future with.
So did I hear you correctly? Release and reset are the two outcomes.
Release the things from the past, reset to the future. And we call it reorientation phase. So you experience these things, and then while you go, man, for example, for me, a couple things I needed to release were certain mindsets around sleep. And I was like, I wasn't quite getting enough rest. So I actually changed my schedule there. Health-wise, I ain't getting any younger. And what I realized is I need to fight harder for my physical health. And there were a couple things there. And then the reset is I was like, I need more space in my schedule for idea creation, content creation, and tool creation. And so I actually created an extra day in my schedule. That was terrifying. I could quantify how many thousands of dollars a year I could have been throwing out if that new thing didn't catch up with us. And so I reset my schedule, and also I was reminded of my priorities and went, there's actually some things I don't really care about. And I'm either going to delegate those or we're going to stop doing those. And I need to reset to these things. And man, my fulfillment has gone up. My impact has gone up. Like I said, we actually took a dip financially right afterwards. And then what happened? We got to a new level after that. So I'm not saying that's going to happen for you, but I've heard that many times before.
So how often do you encounter the fear that if we give somebody a sabbatical, they might have some kind of a revelation or awakening that they don't want to work here anymore?
Every time, without exception. You're going on a bear hunt. You can't go under it. You can't go over it. You got to go through it.
Love that book.
That is the fear right there. And so if a team doesn't come to terms with that, and that's one of the first things I do in the process, Johnny, is have them name, what are your fears? What are your fears to the organization? Leader, what are your fears? The leader usually says, my fear is that I won't be able to run at the pace I could before. I won't be able to run like that, to get back on that stallion and ride it, that Mustang and ride it. And then the organization is like, they either won't come back or they'll come back and be like working at 50%, be like, no, I don't want to do anything hard anymore. That's not how it works, because work is meaningful. We're built for good work, and we're actually worn down. And so we may be doing more tasks. We're not doing great work when we're tired.
Well, then that comes back to trust, right? Like if trust is broken, sabbatical makes no sense. But if I actually
trust your people, trust the process.
So for the people that are watching here, and again, people that are watching are going to be people who really are wanting to make this transition past employee satisfaction and into the place of delight. Like, we want to be knocking it out the park. We don't want to just be mediocre in this area, right? Where do they start? Where do they start in considering adding the idea of sabbatical to their benefits and offerings?
The way I work is actually more about evolution than revolution. And so I want to fight for percentages more. I just think it's a way healthier way to change. By the way, in revolutions, a lot of people die, and it usually doesn't end well. And the country has to recover for a really long time. So the effects are not as great as we think. It's everyone's like, just do it. Hold on, there's people's lives at stake. Our company can't just go away and lose half of our revenue. So I'm a fan of doing this gradually. So like, example for you, Johnny, if you said, man, 4 years from today, I want to be able to receive a sabbatical, what would have to be true? Then I would fight for you to be able to say, okay, if that's a 7-weeker or an 8-weeker, then how do you stretch that to do an extra week you're not comfortable with this year? And then another week after that and take a month off. how could that happen? A stress test of that. Or what would have to be true? Man, I'd have to have an operations partner that would be amazing. Well, could we work toward hiring them in 2 years full time? Could we work toward getting them on staff? So teams, partnerships, working toward that, and then going, so what? What would you do if you had 3 weeks off this summer instead of 2? What would you do if you had 5 weeks off? And so to work toward that gradually, there's always going to be a jump. Just like a company, there's never like the perfect time to launch it or turn your side hustle into a full organization. But there's still moments of trust. There's still leaps of faith in there. But how do we stretch that beyond your internal thinking? Something will break. Now, use those vacations as a stress test over the next few years and learn to prepare. By the way, the essence of the experience is always the preparation. The essence of the experience is always the preparation. How well do you prepare? And I would just say, as a rule of thumb, prepare 3 times as long as the sabbatical. So if you want to head on a 1-month sabbatical, you're going to need 3 months of intensive preparation. So this is not for the lazy. This takes a lot of work to prepare your team for it. But guess what happens? They rise up to the next level. They give greater percentages. And then you go on and go, man, I don't want to do that thing anymore. And they're like, oh, that's cool. I got it. I've been doing this. I can actually take this onto my plate. So sabbatical may be the best kept leadership development tool out there.
So who do you tend to help? Well, let me back up for a second. You actually have a company built around this, right? What's the name of the company?
Sabbatical Coaching Group.
Okay, Sabbatical Coaching Group. And so it's not just you. You've got others around you that are helping you do this. Who is your ideal client who benefits the most from you? Can you give me some characteristics of who that is?
Yeah, right now, the ideal are nonprofits. So we started in the nonprofit space, and there's some really unique dynamics with businesses. So while I'm a leadership coach for a lot of businesses, I'll say there's different challenges, different language, all of that. We're moving into that niche as well of business and saying, we know there's unique challenges. Maybe it's a founder and 90% of the income comes through the actual time and energy of the founder. That's a different challenge right there versus donors need to raise extra money over here, whatever. So I will wholeheartedly admit that. Also, man, I love working with people who sell their company. And so post-exit, so in that case, money's high, meaning's usually low, and confusion is high. What am I supposed to do? What does this look like? So that's an ideal time. What do you need? You need clarity. You need reflection. You need a vision for the future so you don't drive your wife crazy. You can only fish so many days a week and swing the golf clubs. What are you actually going to do of meaning? So I love working with leaders in the disorientation of that time to be able to do that. So with me saying this clearly, we are working hard that in the next 3 years, we'll be able to serve businesses really, really well. We just put out a white paper as well. You can link to that here if you want to, kind of taking those Harvard Business Review notes and pushing them into something really simple for businesses to read. So, man, I would just say, question your vacation policy and extend that. Give as much as you can to the employees and see what they do with it. And your best employees are going to steward it well. They're going to come back. They're not looking to take as much as possible. They're looking to steward that thing well because they love the mission. They love working there. They want other people to experience it well. And they're not takers, they're givers. And if you have takers on staff, you need to get rid of them anyway. And they were takers before sabbatical. They're going to be takers after sabbatical. You got givers, and they are going to want to give and give and give. And by the way, their spouse is going to love that they work at your company, and they are not going to want to leave it.
That's right. So we know who you help. How do you help? What does it look like when you come alongside an organization?
2 ways. We help the organization, we help the leader. Helping the organization looks like helping you create a sabbatical policy and looks like consulting around that. We often stay on staff in a retainer role to just make sure we're your outside man. And then we help work with whoever the person is on the inside. There's a large organization that I'm working with right now that's like, oh, we may want to put a sabbatical policy in place. Well, we need somebody on the inside that's going to fight for it, and then us on the outside that are going to kind of be the experts in it to help you see best practices, connect you with others in other places, help you through the intricacies of how do we get all of our staff this, how do we get it across layers. You know, it feels complex, but we've seen it all before. So we help the organization to create the culture of that. And we also help the leader. And so we also coach that leader. What we find is a leader in the executive level that experiences this. Once they've experienced it, then they want it to trickle down. And then it's just a matter of details about how, when, and again, why's evolution, the gas and clutch at the same rate, not revolution to go, everybody go on sabbatical now. There's no one to work in the office. Of course not. We're a fan of wise sabbaticals. So we help organizations consult and build policies and processes. We help the leader to navigate it. So it's life-changing. It's transformational. And ultimately, their creativity spikes and boosts. They want to work there a long time. Everybody wins.
All right. So as we close up, and this has been so eye-opening for me, and I think heart-opening also. So as we come to a close, as the designer adventurer, right? Like so sabbatical as a subset of all that you are and all that you give to the world. What would you say to my watchers, my viewers who are they earnestly in their hearts want to have better organizations. They want to have happier teams. They want their employees to delight when they come to work and to feel something very special. What's your advice, your closing advice for those people?
What do you have in place that is for the leader, for the person, for their family? Maybe you can't offer sabbatical policy right now. Maybe you can't give huge raises. I'm a fan of the raise that's like an extra $1,000 that says, we love you. We wish we could give you 12,000. We can give you 1,000. I'm a fan of the, hey, you're amazing. And somebody left a Google review saying you're amazing. Why don't you just take an extra week off right now? Hey, here's $100 gift card to just go and get dinner. Like, guys, we can do something. The lie is that if you can't do 12,000, you might as well not do anything. The lie is that, if we can't give them this massive bonus. No, people want to be seen. People want to be known. And by the way, if you play the money game and that's the only thing you have to play, you're always going to have to play the money game. But when you say, hey, you just want to pull somebody aside, catch them doing something well, because we want humans to show up at work, not bots. Guess what? The bots are coming and they're going to do all the little reproducible things that technology could do before, but they can't do the human thinking. They can't do the human design work like we can do it. That empathy, that hospitality. So I just say, you want a hospitable organization? Are you being hospitable to your people? And it's an investment, and every investment is based on delayed gratification. But I've never met an organization that, we just went too far. We really shouldn't have cared for the identity of our people. We only want them to have impact. I don't see it working that way.
It's not going to work, man. That's not the future we're heading into. I appreciate you so much. I think what I appreciate the most about you, Alan, is just the clarity of thought that you bring to the table. Obviously, this message has been working in you for a long time, and it's time for it. The world is ready for it. And so I'm excited for you on this adventure. I know you've done so many other things with leadership development and coaching, and it's an honor to see you adding this to your repertoire. So thanks a lot for joining us today, man. This was a blessing.
Thanks, bro. You're doing great work.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And everybody else who was with us up to this point, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.